I opened my eyes and saw myself in the mirror, wearing a pure, white wedding gown. Just then, I heard Ryan's cold voice by my ear. "Emily, Claire is threatening to jump. I have to go see her." That sentence felt like a sharp knife, slicing straight through my memories. I had been reborn, returned to what I once thought was the happiest moment of my life, my wedding day. In my previous life, Claire, Ryan's childhood sweetheart, caused a scene on our wedding day by threatening suicide. Ryan chose to go through with the wedding, but in the end, Claire really jumped from the hotel rooftop. From that point on, Ryan completely changed. He became consumed with guilt and remorse, and eventually he even became a monk. As his wife, I turned into nothing more than his tool for atonement. He forced me to copy 1,000 Buddhist scriptures, made me kneel and bow along a 100-meter street. In the end, I had a miscarriage. When I lay in a hospital bed and asked for a divorce, he looked at me with reddened eyes and said, "We owe Claire. We have to atone together." He used my family to threaten me, kept me imprisoned by his side, tormenting me day after day until I sank into depression and died. But now, fate had given me a second chance. I turned to Ryan with a gentle, poised smile on my face. "You should go see Claire." Ryan was clearly stunned. In my previous life, I used to lash out in fury every time Claire appeared. She was the one who destroyed our relationship. But now, I was the one telling him to go see her? "You want me to leave you here on our wedding day?" he asked, frowning, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. "Do you know what the media will say?" I sneered inwardly. Gossip and rumors can't kill me, but Ryan can. "I don't care what others think," I said softly, my eyes glistening with tears. "Our wedding can be postponed, but Claire only has one life. If something really happens to her, I'm afraid you'll regret it forever, and I'll carry the guilt for a lifetime." My words earned approving glances from the guests. Even my parents, who had always looked down on me, nodded slightly in recognition. Ryan held me tightly and kissed my forehead. "Emily, you're always so kind. I'll talk her down and come right back to finish our wedding." I nodded sweetly and gently pushed him. "Go, saving a life is more important." Watching him rush off, I clenched the hem of my gown to suppress the trembling in my hands from the excitement. "Ryan, in our last life, you resented me because of Claire. In this life, I'll personally deliver you to her." To sell the act, I stood alone on the wedding stage in my heavy dress for a full hour. The guests kept glancing toward the rooftop while casting sympathetic looks my way. Finally, Ryan returned, with Claire by his side, dressed in a white gown. I nearly forgot. In the previous life, she had worn a wedding-like dress when she jumped. Claire clung to Ryan's arm, looking at me with open provocation. The entire banquet hall burst into chaos. "Emily." Ryan looked visibly uncomfortable. "Claire says she's loved me for many years. All she wants is to have a wedding with me. If I fulfill this wish, she promises she won't bother us again. So, we're letting her have today's wedding." I calmly picked up where he left off. My voice wasn't too loud or too soft, just enough for everyone in the hall to hear. "You're saying we'll give today to her?" Ryan nodded awkwardly. "I'm sorry, Emily, I owe you. I'll make it up to you later." Murmurs swept through the crowd. Some pitied me, others mocked me for pretending to be gracious, saying I was just reaping what I'd sown. I held back my tears and forced myself to appear dignified, bearing the humiliation. "It's all right," I said steadily. From the moment I decided to save Miss Claire, I already put her feelings first. Claire immediately jumped in. "Ryan saved me. If he hadn't agreed to marry me, I would have jumped anyway. What does that have to do with you?" That one sentence caused even the neutral guests to begin siding against me. As everyone stared at me with accusatory eyes, Claire's expression shifted slightly, but she quickly lifted her chin and said smugly, "If Ryan didn't want to save me, it wouldn't matter what anyone said. The fact that he did proves I still matter to him." Having been exposed, Ryan flushed with shame and anger. "Claire, if it weren't for the friendship between our families, I wouldn't have cared about you at all. Because of you, Emily has suffered such humiliation, and you don't even appreciate it? Get back to the rooftop if that's what you want." Claire's eyes reddened, and after a moment's hesitation, she lowered her head reluctantly. "I'm sorry, Ryan. Since Emily is willing to give up the wedding, let's not keep the guests waiting. Let's just start." Ryan looked at me with a guilty expression. I gave him a faint smile, then turned around and walked to the dressing room to change. Not long after, the wedding march began, and I could hear Claire's soft, affected voice reciting vows alongside Ryan. Just as I finished changing, the hotel manager came rushing in, panic written all over his face. "Miss Emily, there's a fight in the front hall." I hurried back, only to be met with a scene that froze the blood in my veins. Ryan was holding my younger brother Evan down on the floor, punching him over and over. Claire stood to the side, her white dress stained with juice, screaming hysterically, "Beat that little bastard to death." Ryan's assistant tried to pull him back, but I ran forward and grabbed his arm. Evan saw me, his mouth bleeding, and still tried to reassure me. "I'm okay, sis." In my past life, Evan was my only family. He was also the leverage Ryan used to threaten me. Later, to avoid burdening me any further, Evan chose to end his own life. Now, seeing him alive and right in front of me, tears burst from my eyes. Ryan flung me aside. "Don't get in the way." I hit the ground hard, and a sharp pain shot through my lower abdomen. That's when I remembered. At this point in my past life, I was already pregnant. "Emily?" Evan broke free and rushed to my side. Only then did Ryan stop and attempt to come over to help me. I pushed him away forcefully. "Call an ambulance." I clutched my stomach, cold sweat pouring from my forehead. Evan quickly pulled out his phone, but at that moment, Claire suddenly fainted. Without hesitation, Ryan scooped her into his arms and ran off toward the hospital. Watching his retreating back felt like knives twisting in my heart. Even in our sweetest moments, his first choice was always Claire. How could I have been so blind in my past life? "I'll go with you to the hospital," Evan said, supporting me as we walked toward the hotel entrance. Just as we reached the door, the ambulance arrived. Claire's mother shoved me aside and shouted to the doctor, "Save my daughter first." Ryan climbed into the ambulance with Claire in his arms. He didn't even glance at me. "Emily, you just fell." Claire fainted. "It's more dangerous. Give her the ambulance. I'll have the driver take you." I shook my head, the pain in my belly twisting like a knife. "No, I need to go to the hospital now." Claire's mother slapped me across the face. "You think you're worthy to compete with my daughter?" Evan tried to fight back but was immediately restrained by security. Ryan frowned and said coldly, "Mrs. Davis is just anxious. Emily, stop making a scene. This is a matter of life and death." With that, he got in the ambulance. "You bastard, Ryan!" I screamed at the top of my lungs. Suddenly, someone nearby cried out in alarm, "She's bleeding." I looked down and saw bright red blood running down my legs, soaking into the carpet at the hotel entrance. In this life, I won't let anyone hurt me or the people I love ever again. "Ryan, our game is only just beginning." The piercing sound of the ambulance siren grew more distant. I lay on the cold marble floor at the hotel's entrance, the blood between my legs already soaking through my gown. The guests began to murmur in fear and panic, someone shouting for another ambulance. "Hang in there, sis." Evan knelt beside me, taking off his jacket and covering me with it, his voice shaking. "The ambulance is almost here." The sharp pain in my abdomen nearly made me pass out, but my mind remained painfully clear. This fall didn't just take away my baby, it shattered the last illusion I ever had about Ryan. "Evan," I gasped, clutching my brother's hand, "remember everything that happened today. Remember what Ryan did to us." "Don't talk, sis. Save your strength," Evan said, eyes bloodshot, voice choked with emotion. "That bastard isn't worth it." And in the distance, at last, came the wail of another approaching ambulance. As I was lifted onto the stretcher, I caught a glimpse of the hotel's large screen at the entrance. It was broadcasting a live stream of Ryan and Claire's wedding. Claire was wearing the wedding gown that was originally mine, clinging to Ryan's arm with a triumphant smile on her face. What a cruel, ironic scene. In my previous life, Claire jumped to her death, and Ryan spent the rest of his life tormenting me, trying to atone. In this life, I willingly gave them my blessing, yet still couldn't escape fate's bitter joke. The moment the ambulance doors closed, I lost consciousness completely. When I woke again, I was staring up at the pale ceiling of a hospital room. The room was quiet, with only the rhythmic beeping of medical machines in the background. I tried to move, and pain shot through my lower abdomen like it was being torn apart. "You're awake." Evan jumped up from a chair in the corner of the room and rushed over to my bedside. "How are you feeling? Should I call the doctor?" I shook my head. My throat so dry it felt like it was on fire. Water. Evan immediately poured a glass of warm water, carefully lifted my head, and helped me drink. Is the baby gone? I asked softly, even though I already knew the answer deep down. Evan's face darkened. Yeah, the doctor said the miscarriage was caused by external trauma. His fists clenched tightly. That bastard. He saw you bleeding and still. What time is it? I interrupted him. 3 in the afternoon. You've been unconscious for almost 12 hours. Evan glanced at his watch. Mom and Dad rushed back from overseas. They should be here any minute now. My chest tightened with warmth. In my previous life, my parents had been abroad inspecting a business project. When they heard I'd had a miscarriage, they immediately flew home, only to die in a car crash at the airport. After that, Ryan took full control of my life, under the guise of taking care of me. This time, I would protect them no matter what. Did Ryan come? I asked calmly. Evan's face turned stormy. He did. Brought that bitch with him. I kicked them out. That bastard had the nerve to say you didn't fall on purpose, that Claire was traumatized and needed him to stay with her. I nearly punched him. I gently grabbed Evan's hand. Don't be impulsive. Hitting him won't solve anything. It'll just give him something to use against us. Evan stared at me, surprised. You've changed. You would have been angrier than me before. I have changed, I said softly. When someone's died once, they don't come back the same. Do me a favor, I continued. Find a reliable private investigator. I want every detail about Ryan and Claire's interactions, every call, every meeting. The more thorough, the better. Evan's eyes lit up. So you're finally gonna fight back? I'm on it. He walked to the door, but then turned back. Oh, right, there's a doctor named Dr. David Chen. He says he's your attending physician and has something important to discuss with you. The name David Chen sounded familiar. I nodded. Let him in. Not long after Evan left, there was a gentle knock at the door. A tall man walked in, dressed in a white coat over a crisp shirt and tailored slacks. Behind his gold-rimmed glasses, his eyes were sharp yet kind. Miss Emily, I'm Dr. David Chen, your attending physician. His voice was low and pleasant. Are you feeling better? Much better, thank you. I slowly sat up in bed. I heard you had something to discuss. Dr. Chen walked over and took a report from a file in his hand. These are your test results. Aside from the miscarriage, your uterus has suffered significant damage. Your chances of conceiving in the future are very low. I took the report, my fingers trembling slightly. In my past life, Ryan used this very reason to torment me, claiming I had caused Claire's death, and that God was punishing me by taking away my ability to have children. I understand, I said quietly. I took a deep breath. Is there anything else? Dr. David Chen hesitated for a moment, then lowered his voice. Yes, something unusual. In your blood test, we found traces of a specific compound. It's a drug. Long-term intake can lead to infertility. I jerked my head up. What do you mean? He looked me in the eyes. What I mean is, Emily, someone may have been secretly drugging you over a long period of time. This medication acts slowly, but it gradually damages the female reproductive system. My mind went blank. In my previous life, I'd always thought I was just naturally unable to conceive. But now I realized it had been intentional all along. Can you tell when it started? My voice trembled. Judging from the concentration in your system, Dr. Chen replied, at least 6 months ago. This kind of drug is usually administered by mixing it into food or drink. 6 months ago, that was right around when Ryan proposed to me. A cold chill crawled up my spine. Dr. Chen, can you keep this report confidential? I gripped the bedsheet tightly. He pushed up his glasses. As a doctor, I'm obligated to protect my patient's privacy. However, he paused. If you need legal assistance, I know a few trustworthy attorneys I can refer you to. I studied this unfamiliar doctor, trying to understand why he was being so kind to me. Why are you helping me? He gave a faint smile. 3 years ago, Story Corporation forcibly shut down a hospital. That hospital was my father's life's work. His eyes flashed with cold light. And no one deserves to be treated like this, especially not a pregnant woman. So that's what it was. The enemy of my enemy was my friend. Thank you, I said sincerely. I'll remember this kindness. Dr. Chen nodded and turned to leave. But at the door, he paused. Oh, your brother mentioned you were looking for a private investigator. One of my college classmates runs a detective agency now, very reliable. He pulled a business card from his pocket and set it on the bedside table. Reach out if you need him. After he left, I picked up the card. Minjin Investigations. Lin Sen. That name sounded familiar. Then I remembered, last life, there was a news report in the finance section. It was this very Lin Sen who exposed Story Corporation's financial fraud scandal. So fate had delivered an ally to me, just like that. I was still lost in thought when the hospital room door opened again. This time, it was my parents. Their faces were filled with worry and fury. "Emily," my mother cried as she rushed to my side and embraced me, her tears soaking my shoulder. "How could this happen? That Ryan dared to do this to you?" My father stood at the side of the bed, his expression ashen. "I've already contacted a lawyer. The Bennett family will pay for this." Seeing them standing there, safe and unharmed, made my nose sting. I nearly burst into tears. In my last life, they died in a plane crash trying to rush home to see me. I didn't even get to say goodbye. "I'm okay, Mom, Dad." I held back my tears. "It's enough that you came back safe." "What do you mean okay?" my mother said, stroking my cheek tenderly. "You lost the baby, and that bastard is marrying another woman?" My father added grimly, "The Bennetts sent someone this morning. They offered compensation, hoping we'd keep this quiet." I let out a cold laugh. Of course they want to keep it quiet. Story Corporation is preparing for their IPO. A scandal like this would cost them millions. My parents exchanged surprised glances, clearly not expecting me to speak with such calm analysis. "Emily, what do you plan to do?" my mother asked carefully. I took a deep breath. "First, I want a divorce from Ryan Bennett." Then my eyes flashed coldly. "I'm going to make him and Claire Davis pay for everything they've done." They exchanged another look. Then my father nodded. "Whatever you decide, we'll support you." "Thanks, Dad." I gripped his hand. "But I'll need your help." I told them what Dr. Ro Chen had discovered about the drug in my system. My father exploded on the spot, nearly smashing the hospital's TV. "That bastard drugged my daughter?" he roared. "I'm going to confront the Bennetts right now." "Dad, calm down." I pulled him back. "If you go now, it'll only alert them. We need evidence, we need a plan." My mother chimed in gently. "Emily's right. We can't act on emotion." My father forced himself to swallow his rage. "Then what should we do?" "First, I need a safe place to stay. I don't want to go back to the Bennett's house after I'm discharged. Second, I'll need some funds to start putting my plan into motion." Without hesitation, my father nodded. "We have an apartment on the west side of the city. It's private," my father said. "Money's not a problem. How much do you need?" "5 million, I said calmly. My parents looked at me, visibly surprised. "I'm starting a business," I explained. "The reason Ryan Bennett dared to treat me this way is because he thinks the Summers family isn't as powerful as the Bennetts. I want him to understand that the daughter of the Summers family is not someone to be underestimated." A glint of pride flickered in my father's eyes. "That's more like it. You're truly my daughter." As we spoke, the hospital room door was suddenly flung open. Ryan appeared in the doorway, wearing a neatly tailored suit and holding a bouquet of white roses. When he saw my parents, he froze for a moment. "Mr. and Mrs. Summers," he forced a smile. "You're back." My father marched forward and grabbed him by the collar. "You bastard, you still dare to show your face here?" Ryan stumbled back, flustered. "Mr. Summers, this is a misunderstanding. I can explain." "Explain what?" my father roared. "Explain how you abandoned my daughter at your wedding to marry another woman? Explain how you caused her to lose her baby? Or maybe explain how you've been secretly drugging her to make her infertile?" Ryan's face drained of color. "De-drugging? I don't know what you're talking about." I stood to the side, watching his performance coldly. In my past life, I'd been fooled by that same look of innocence for far too long. "Get out," my mother said, standing up and pointing toward the door. "If you come near my daughter again, we'll call the police." Ryan awkwardly straightened the wrinkles in his suit left by my father's grip, placed the bouquet on the cabinet near the door, and said, "Emily, I know you're angry, but I really don't know anything about drugging you. I'll come visit another time." He left in a hurry, and my father still fumed. "That piece of trash, I'll make sure he pays." I shook my head. No, anger won't solve anything with someone like him. I picked up the business card Dr. Chen had left. "We need to be smarter." That evening, Evan returned to the hospital with Lin Sen, the private investigator. Lin was a sharp-looking man in his 40s, his gaze as sharp as a blade. "Miss Summers," he said as he shook my hand, "your brother gave me a basic overview of the situation. We'll begin the investigation immediately." I nodded. "Focus on two areas. First, the real relationship between Ryan Bennett and Claire Davis. Second, the financial status of Story Corporation." Lynn raised an eyebrow. "Financials? I thought you just wanted to investigate their personal drama." "The relationship is only the surface," I said with a cold smile. "Ryan wouldn't have gone that far for Claire without a business motive. I want to know his real reason." A look of admiration crossed Lynn's face. "Smart." "In fact," he lowered his voice, "our agency has been secretly investigating a large-scale corporate fraud case involving Story Corporation. The only problem is, we don't have an insider." Once again, fate had placed an ally in my path. "I can help," I said without hesitation. "I worked in Story's marketing department for 6 months. I know how they operate." Lynn's eyes lit up. "That's excellent. Then we'll share intel. You provide internal information, and I'll dig into Ryan and Claire's backgrounds." We came to an agreement. Before Lynn left, I turned to Evan. "Go to my old apartment and get the flash drive in the drawer of my desk. It has documents I gathered from my time at the company." Evan nodded and left. The room finally fell quiet. I leaned against the pillow, gazing out at the night sky, and began sorting through the information in my head. In my past life, after Claire died, Ryan's entire personality changed. He immersed himself in Buddhist teachings, but he tortured me with the cruelest methods imaginable. Looking back, it wasn't faith, it was just an escape from his own guilt. But in this life, Claire was still alive. What would Ryan become this time? I was lost in thought when my phone buzzed suddenly. It was a text from an unknown number. "Miss Summers, this is Dr. Chen. I just received further analysis from the lab. The compound found in your system closely matches an experimental contraceptive being developed by Story Pharmaceuticals. The drug hasn't been released to the market yet. It's only accessible to internal personnel. Do you have time to meet and discuss?" I stared at my phone screen, my fingers trembling slightly. So it really was him. "Ryan Bennett, you're 100 times more vicious than I ever imagined." I replied, "Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Hospital Garden, thank you." Just as I set the phone down, another message came in. This time it was from Ryan. "Emily, I know you don't want to see me right now, but I need to explain. Claire was threatening suicide. I had no choice but to calm her down temporarily, but you're the only one in my heart. Please give me a chance to make things right. Also, my parents are really worried about you. They hope you'll come home." I let out a cold laugh. In my past life, it was these kinds of sweet words that fooled me into believing he truly loved me. Now I see it clearly. His so-called parents, Mr. and Mrs. Bennett, never liked me from the start. They thought I wasn't good enough for their precious son. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened social media. As expected, hashtags like groom swaps bride mid-wedding and heiress suffers miscarriage and abandonment were already trending. The internet was divided. One side sympathized with me and condemned Ryan. The other accused me of being too magnanimous and deserving the consequences. I created a new account and posted a short message. "Thank you for your concern. I'm currently recovering in the hospital and fortunately not in critical condition. I have no regrets about my decision at the wedding. Saving a life is worth it. I just never expected the price would be so high. Life is precious. I hope everyone cherishes it." The post, calm on the surface but laced with sharp undertones, was shared tens of thousands of times within hours. Public opinion began to shift, with more and more people criticizing Ryan and Claire. Some even dug up Claire's history of multiple past suicide attempts, questioning whether this latest one was nothing but another act. I watched the likes, shares, and comments pile up, a cold smirk tugging at my lips. "Ryan, this is just the first round. You always cared most about the Bennett family's public image, didn't you? Then I'll start by destroying it." The next morning, Evan returned with the flash drive. He also brought another piece of news. "Emily, guess what? Claire was caught last night at a nightclub, kissing some hot young guy. It's all over the tabloids. Ryan saw it this morning and trashed his entire office." I couldn't help but laugh. So her true colors are already showing. I opened the flash drive and found a folder labeled StoryCorp Projects. Looks like Miss Claire isn't as devoted to Ryan as she pretends to be, I murmured. Evan leaned over. What is this? These are internal documents from Story Corporation. Every major project from the last 3 years, I explained. Back then, I noticed some discrepancies in the numbers, so I made a backup just in case. Evan's eyes widened. Emily, that's incredible. These files alone could bring the Bennetts to their knees. Not so fast, I said, shaking my head. This is just surface level. We need hard proof. I paused to think. Evan, find out if StoryCorp is about to launch any major new projects, especially ones that require large-scale funding. Evan nodded and quickly left. At exactly 10 a.m., a nurse wheeled me to the hospital garden. Dr. Chen was already there, his white coat glowing under the morning sun. Miss Summers, he greeted, helping push my wheelchair to a bench. Are you feeling better? Much better, thank you. I gestured for the nurse to leave us alone. Dr. Chen sat beside me and pulled a folder from his briefcase. Here's the detailed analysis report on that compound. He opened it. The substance is coded CD29. It's an experimental long-term contraceptive developed by Story Pharmaceuticals. One of the side effects is infertility. Then, lowering his voice, he added, the most alarming part is that it also affects emotional stability. Users become easier to manipulate without even realizing it. I inhaled sharply. No wonder in my past life I had obeyed Ryan so blindly. No matter how cruelly he treated me, I never found the strength to resist. So it wasn't weakness, it was the drug. Is there any way to prove Ryan was the one who drugged me? I asked. I looked at Dr. Chen. Is there a way to prove Ryan was the one who gave me the drug? He adjusted his glasses. It's difficult, but... He hesitated. I have a friend who works in the R&D department at Story Pharmaceuticals. He said this drug is only accessible to top-level executives, and Ryan, as the heir, does have that clearance. I clenched my fist so tightly that my nails dug into my palms. Ryan Bennett, you didn't just lie to me about love. You tried to control my entire life with drugs. Can this information be used as evidence in court? I asked. Dr. Chen shook his head. Not at this stage, but my friend is willing to testify if absolutely necessary. Then he gave a bitter smile. But he'd need a settlement. The Bennetts are too powerful. Testifying would mean the end of his career. Money's not an issue, I said without hesitation. Tell him, if he's willing to testify, the Summers family will guarantee his and his family's safety, and will give him enough money to live comfortably for the rest of his life. Dr. Chen looked at me in surprise. Are you sure? That won't be a small amount. I gave a cold smile. Compared to making Ryan pay for what he's done, money means nothing. He nodded thoughtfully. All right, I'll let him know. He glanced at his watch. I have to make my rounds. Take care and contact me anytime if you need anything. After he left, I sat alone in the garden. The sunlight poured over me, but I couldn't feel any warmth. My mind was flooded with memories from my past life. Ryan forcing me to copy Buddhist scriptures until my fingers bled, making me kneel for hours in front of the temple in the dead of winter, until I lost my baby. Emily? A familiar voice snapped me out of my thoughts. I turned my head and saw Claire Davis standing a few feet away. She was wearing a designer dress, with flawless makeup, looking nothing like someone who'd recently attempted suicide. What are you doing here? I asked coldly. Claire approached, looking down at me with disdain. Just wanted to see if you were dead yet, she sneered, her lips curling into a venomous smile. Didn't expect you to be this tough. I forced myself to stay calm. Does Ryan know you're here? Ryan? She said smugly. He's busy dealing with the company's PR disaster, all thanks to that little post of yours. You made a huge mess for StoryCorp and the Bennett family. The board's breathing down his neck. So that's what this was about. I only told the truth, I replied weakly, playing the part. Miss Davis, why are you doing this to me? I saved your life. Don't pretend to be some saint, Claire suddenly lost control. Do you have any idea how much I've sacrificed for Ryan? We grew up together. We were meant to be. And then 4 years ago, you suddenly appeared and stole him from me. I looked at her outburst calmly, and suddenly everything became clear. So all your suicide threats were just a performance? All to break us up? Claire smirked. And what if they were? This time, I won. Ryan chose me. Really? I said lightly. Then what about the male model you were making out with at the club last night? Her face went white. How do you know about that? I lifted my phone and waved it slowly. The whole internet knows. Didn't Ryan tell you? She fumbled for her phone, scrolling through frantically. Her face turned ashen. That's impossible. I paid the reporter to bury those photos. I finished her sentence for her. Too bad someone else paid more. That someone, of course, was the private investigator. I had guessed as much the moment I saw the headlines this morning. Claire suddenly lunged at me. You bitch, it was you, wasn't it? She reached out to claw my face, but before her hand could touch me, a sharp voice rang out from behind. That's enough. Her wrist was caught mid-air, firmly held in place. Dr. Chen had appeared in the garden without a sound. He stepped between us, his tall frame shielding me completely, and pushed Claire back a few steps. This is a hospital. His voice was cold as ice. Not a place for this kind of behavior. Do I need to call security? Claire stumbled but managed to stay on her feet, her face pale with rage. Do you know who I am? I'm Ryan Bennett's fiancé. Dr. Chen adjusted his glasses, his eyes behind the lenses sharp as blades. To me, Dr. Chen said calmly, you're nothing more than a violent intruder threatening one of my patients. Claire's entire body trembled with rage. She pointed a finger at my face. Emily Summers, just you wait. With that, she stormed off in her heels, the sound of them striking the ground as sharp as her temper. Dr. Chen turned and crouched beside me to check my condition. Are you all right? I shook my head. My heartbeat still hadn't calmed. Thank you. How did you know to show up just now? I was making my rounds, he replied. Saw something suspicious on the security monitor, someone approaching you. He stood up and began pushing my wheelchair back toward the ward. So that was Claire, he muttered. Even nastier in person than in the news. I let out a bitter laugh. No argument here. Dr. Chen didn't respond, but I saw the corner of his mouth twitch slightly. Back in my room, he adjusted the IV drip. Your condition isn't stable. Emotional stress will only slow your recovery. Next time you receive visitors, make sure a family member is present. I didn't expect her to show up, I said, leaning back against my pillow. But I'm glad she did. That conversation confirmed one thing. What's that? He asked. Her suicide attempt was fake, I said, eyes narrowing. She never meant to die, she just wanted to force Ryan into making a choice. Dr. Chen thought for a moment. Sounds like a match made in hell. I couldn't help but laugh, then immediately winced as pain tore through my abdomen. I sucked in a breath sharply. Don't move. Dr. Chen frowned. Your uterine injury needs at least 2 more weeks to start healing. He hesitated, then added, about that drug, my friend agreed to testify. My eyes lit up. Really? What does he want in return? 5 million, Dr. Chen said bluntly, and a job at the overseas branch of the Summers Corporation. He handed me a slip of paper. This is his Swiss bank account. Once the money's transferred, he'll resign immediately and take his family abroad. I looked at the account details and nodded. No problem. The position can be arranged whenever he's ready. Dr. Chen gave a nod and turned to leave, but paused at the door. Miss Summers, are you sure you want to go through with this? The Bennett family isn't easy to deal with. I met his gaze directly. Dr. Chen, do you know what it feels like to be drugged by the person you trusted most? Do you know what it's like to watch your parents die because of you? My voice trembled. I've already died once. There's nothing left to fear. He held my gaze for a long moment, then silently closed the door behind him. 3 days later, the doctor finally cleared me to leave the hospital. My parents and Evan came to pick me up and drove me straight to the apartment on the west side of the city. It was a spacious penthouse with wide views and top-tier security, perfect for resting, recovering, and plotting revenge. Emily, here's your new phone and number, my mom said, handing me the device. We kept your old number, but it's better not to use it. Ryan keeps calling. I accepted the phone. Thanks, Mom. How are things at the company? My father handed me a glass of water. The board has already suspended all joint projects with StoryCorp. Mr. Bennett has called 3 times to apologize. I refused to answer. Well done, I nodded. Dad, is the 5 million ready? He pulled a check from his briefcase. Right here. But Emily, are you absolutely sure about this? Once we start, there's no turning back. I took the check without hesitation. There was no turning back the moment he drugged me. Evan leaned in excitedly. Emily, Lin Sen, the private investigator, just made a huge discovery. He opened his laptop. Look, this is a record of Claire's suicide history over the past 3 years. The screen displayed a detailed dossier. Claire had attempted suicide almost every year, every time coinciding with a milestone in my relationship with Ryan. The most recent one, our wedding day, was her 5th attempt, Evan said, raising an eyebrow. Textbook emotional manipulation. Every time she attempted suicide, he added, she ended up in the hospital and Ryan stayed right by her side. I let out a cold laugh. So that's why. No wonder Ryan hated me so much after Claire died in the last life. He was used to being manipulated by her. There's more, Evan said as he switched tabs on his laptop. Lin Sen hacked into Claire's social media accounts and found something big. She and Ryan have been in a physical relationship all along. Even while you two were together, they never stopped. The screen showed intimate photos of Claire and Ryan, their closeness documented over 4 years. A wave of nausea twisted my stomach. It wasn't heartbreak, it was sheer disgust. Can these photos be used as legal evidence? I asked. Evan shook his head. Probably not in court, but in the court of public opinion? More than enough. Do we release them now? Not yet, I said, thinking it through. Let's give it a little more time. Let the pressure build. What's Ryan's biggest concern right now? I asked. My father answered, StoryCorp is preparing to go public. A scandal like this would shake investor confidence and tank their valuation. Then that's where we strike first. I smiled. Dad, can you arrange an interview for me with a journalist from Financial Daily? I'll speak as the heir of the Summers Group. Share my thoughts on the current investment climate. My father immediately understood. No problem, I know their editor-in-chief. Right, Evan suddenly chimed in. I almost forgot about that big project you had me look into. There's been a breakthrough. He opened another document. StoryCorp is bidding for the Eastside New District development. They need at least $2 billion in funding. Their plan is to cover the gap with the IPO. My eyes lit up. So if we stop the IPO, the entire project collapses? Evan nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. They've already invested nearly $500 million of their own funds into the project. If the IPO fails, their cash flow could dry up. My father frowned. How did you even find out something this sensitive? Evan grinned proudly. Lin Sen has a friend in StoryCorp's finance department. Of course, we paid handsomely for the info. I patted his shoulder. Nice work. Then I turned to my parents. Mom, Dad, I need your help with something. What is it? My mom asked. I need you to send a divorce settlement proposal to the Bennetts, in your name, I said calmly. Demand a public apology from Ryan and a mental damages compensation of $100 million. My father's eyes widened. $100 million? They'll never agree to that. Exactly, I said coldly. That way, we can say negotiations broke down and go public with everything. My parents exchanged a long glance. My mother asked hesitantly, Emily, have you really thought this through? Once it's public, there's no going back. There was never a way back, I said softly. From the moment I was reborn, I had only one path left: revenge. Reborn? They said in unison. That's when I realized I'd slipped. I quickly explained. I just meant, like I came back from the edge of death. They still looked puzzled but chose not to press further. After they left, Evan stayed behind with me. He hesitated for a moment, then asked, Emily, what you said earlier, was it true? About being reborn? I was silent for a moment, then slowly nodded. It sounds crazy, but yes. I really died once. In the last life, Claire actually jumped, and Ryan spent the rest of his life making me suffer to atone for her death. Evan's eyes widened like saucers. So, you know what's going to happen in the future? Only parts of it, I replied with a bitter smile. For example, in the original timeline, Mom and Dad died in a plane crash while rushing home. That's why I made sure to change their flight this time. Evan gasped. Oh my God. So it's all real. Evan, I said seriously, you can't tell anyone about this, not even Mom and Dad. Let's keep it between us, our secret. He nodded solemnly, his eyes sparkling with excitement. Got it. This is so cool. It's like something out of a movie. Don't worry, sis. I'll help you get your revenge. I looked at his eager, innocent expression and couldn't help but smile. I couldn't help but smile. It felt good. Really good, to have my family by my side. That evening, I sent Dr. Chen a message. asking to meet him the next day at a cafe near my apartment. I told him there was something important we needed to discuss. He replied quickly and agreed. The next morning, wearing sunglasses and a hat, I arrived at the cafe with Evan. Dr. Chen was already there, dressed casually in a shirt and slacks. Out of his lab coat, he looked noticeably younger. "Miss Summers," he stood up and greeted me. "How's your recovery?" "Much better, thank you." I took the seat across from him. "Did your friend receive the payment?" Dr. Chen nodded. "Yes, he's already resigned and will be flying to Switzerland with his family the day after tomorrow." He took a USB drive from his bag. "This contains all the research data on the drug CD29, including clinical trial records." I took the drive and handed it to Evan. "This is huge. These documents are critical." But Dr. Chen hesitated. "Before you left, my friend told me something I think you should know." "What is it?" He lowered his voice. "In addition to its contraceptive and infertility effects, CD29 has another hidden function. It can, over long-term use, impair memory and cognitive ability. In some cases, it may even lead to early-onset dementia." A chill ran through my entire body. In the later part of my previous life, I had indeed begun to experience memory lapses and trouble focusing. Back then, I thought it was just stress, but now I realized it was all part of Ryan's plan. "That monster," Evan growled, slamming his fist onto the table, drawing stares from the nearby customers. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to stay composed. "Is there any way to prove this?" Dr. Chen adjusted his glasses. "The data includes related studies, but the most damning evidence," he paused, "is that 3 internal trial participants at Story Pharmaceuticals showed similar symptoms. They were paid off and made to sign confidentiality agreements." "Can we contact them?" I asked. "It's unlikely," he said, but he reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. "This lawyer specializes in medical malpractice. He's trustworthy. If you want to sue Story Pharmaceuticals, he can help." I took the card and read it. "Zhaojiang Law Firm. Thank you, I'll get in touch with him," I said sincerely. "Dr. Chen, why have you done so much for me?" He paused for a moment. "My father used to be the director of Renhe Hospital. 3 years ago, Story Group forcibly demolished the hospital to expand a commercial plaza. My father protested, but it was useless. He had a heart attack and died." A trace of pain flickered in his eyes. "Watching what's happening to Ryan now, I suppose it's a kind of justice." I hadn't known we shared this kind of connection. Fate really was strange, bringing together 2 people both wronged by the Bennetts. "Dr. Chen," I looked him in the eye, "would you be willing to join my revenge plan? As both my medical advisor and a friend?" He looked stunned for a second, then he reached out his hand. "It would be an honor." We shook hands, sealing the alliance. Just then my phone rang. It was Lin Sen, the private investigator. "Miss Summers, I've made a major discovery," Lin said, excitement in his voice. "I've been following Claire for 3 days. Turns out, not only does she have a young boyfriend, but she's also having an affair with StoryCorp's CFO. More importantly," his voice dropped, "I recorded a video of her and the CFO conspiring to falsify financial records." I almost jumped from my chair. "What? Explain, what exactly did you see?" "In the video, Claire clearly states that she's helping Ryan cover up gaps in the company's finances so they can pass the IPO audit. From the looks of it, StoryCorp's financial situation is worse than we thought." My brain kicked into high gear. "Detective Lin, that video is critical. Can you send it to me?" "I already forwarded it to your email," he said. Then after a pause added, "But Emily, if that video goes public, it won't just ruin Ryan. Claire could face jail time too. Are you sure you want to go that far?" I let out a cold laugh, more certain than ever. After hanging up the call, I told Dr. Chen and Evan everything Lin Sen had discovered. Evan was practically rubbing his hands together in excitement. "Emily, this is it. A fatal blow. No way StoryCorp makes it to IPO after this." But Dr. Chen was far more cautious. "Once this video goes public, it's a fight to the death. The Bennetts won't go down quietly. You need to be prepared for their retaliation." I nodded. "I understand. That's why we need more allies and more evidence." I turned to Evan. "Reach out to a journalist at the Financial Daily. Tell them I have an explosive story to share." Evan immediately started making calls. Dr. Chen looked at me. "When are you planning to make your move?" 3 days from now," I said confidently. That's the day of StoryCorp's final roadshow before the IPO. All the major investors will be there. A flicker of admiration passed through Dr. Chen's eyes. Perfect timing. We exchanged a knowing smile. The wheels of revenge had already begun to turn. On the morning of the roadshow, I stood in my walk-in closet carefully selecting my outfit for battle. I chose a deep navy blue suit dress, sharp and elegant. I paired it with pearl earrings and black heels, the perfect look for a high society heiress and corporate successor. You're really going in person? Evan leaned against the doorframe, 2 invitations in hand. It's dangerous. Ryan's going to lose it when he sees you. I applied a bold red lipstick. That's exactly what I want. Let him lose it. Turning to face him, I asked, "Everything set?" Evan flashed an okay sign. "Reporters, lawyers, SEC reps, everyone's in place. Lin Sen will meet us outside the venue." I checked my handbag one last time, confirming the USB drive and documents were inside. Then I took a deep breath. Let's go. Our parents had wanted to come too, but I insisted they stay at the company to hold the line. This battle, I had to face Ryan Bennett myself. The roadshow was held in the grand ballroom of StoryCorp's headquarters. By the time Evan and I arrived, the venue was already packed. On stage, Ryan stood in a perfectly tailored suit, delivering his speech with confident ease. Behind him, a massive screen displayed StoryCorp's glowing achievements and ambitious projections. The Eastside New District project is expected to generate over $500 million in net profit annually, he was saying. Alongside our established pharmaceuticals and real estate divisions, StoryCorp's projected compound growth rate for the next 3 years exceeds 30%. His voice was charismatic and polished, completely hiding the chaos he was actually facing behind the scenes. I stood silently at the back of the room, watching his performance with cold detachment. Evan leaned over and discreetly pointed toward the front right. There's Claire. She wore an all-white tailored suit, playing the perfect image of a supportive partner, pouring tea and smiling sweetly at what looked like a few VIP investors. She was clearly doing everything she could to sell the image of stability, for StoryCorp and for Ryan. Ryan's presentation neared its conclusion. Based on these projections, we believe StoryCorp is conservatively valued at $20 billion. Our IPO seeks to raise $2 billion, which will be allocated toward. That's when I began walking toward the front, slowly removing my sunglasses. A ripple spread through the room. People started whispering. Some gasped. A few instantly recognized me. Ryan's speech came to an abrupt halt. He stared at me, eyes wide in disbelief. "Emily?" "Long time no see, Mr. Bennett," I said with a calm smile. My voice wasn't loud, but just loud enough for the front rows to hear. "Excellent presentation. There are just a few figures that seem a little off." The room went silent. Every eye turned to me. Ryan's face turned stone cold. "Emily, this isn't the time or place for one of your stunts. Security, please escort this woman out." 2 security guards began moving toward me. Evan stepped in front of me immediately. "Touch my sister, and you'll regret it." I gently patted Evan's shoulder to keep him calm, then reached into my handbag and pulled out the USB drive. "Mr. Bennett," I said evenly, "I happen to have some very interesting data. I think the investors here would love to see it. It's about the actual financial state of the Eastside New District project and," I paused deliberately, "about how you and Miss Davis worked together to falsify the accounting records." Gasps filled the room. Claire jumped to her feet. "That's a lie," she shouted. I let out a cold laugh and handed the USB drive to the nearest journalist. "There's video evidence inside." Ryan jumped down from the stage and stormed toward me, grabbing my wrist. "Emily, what are you trying to do?" He growled through gritted teeth, lowering his voice. "Can't we settle this privately? Do you have to destroy me?" I yanked my hand free. "Privately? Like how you secretly drugged me?" I raised my voice so that everyone in the room could hear. "In case some of you don't know," I announced, sweeping my gaze across the room, Story Pharmaceuticals developed a drug called CD29. Long-term use causes infertility and memory damage, and Mr. Bennett was kind enough to make sure I took it for 6 months. The room erupted. Cameras clicked wildly as reporters surged forward. Investors turned pale and began murmuring in alarm. Ryan stood frozen, his face ashen. How do you even know about that?" "If you don't want people to find out, don't do it in the first place," I said coldly. Then I turned to Director Wong from the Securities Commission. I have detailed evidence of StoryCorp's financial fraud. I'd like to submit it to your office. Director Wong nodded solemnly. Miss Summers, we take these reports seriously. Please come to my office after this event so we can discuss the matter in detail. Panic finally cracked Ryan's facade. Director Wong, it's all a misunderstanding. Emily is just bitter over our breakup. She's making this up. Bitter? I gave a hollow laugh and pulled out an envelope of photos, tossing them into the air. You married Claire on the day I lost our child. You were sleeping with her during our relationship, and you call that heartbreak? The photos fluttered down like snow, each one showing Ryan and Claire in compromising positions, all provided by Lin Sen. Chaos exploded in the room. Reporters dove to gather the pictures. Furious investors began bombarding Ryan with questions. Claire shrieked and lunged toward me. You bitch, I hope you die. Evan stepped between us and shoved her back. Get lost. Ryan completely lost control. He pointed at me, his face twisted in rage. Emily, I swear on everything, I'll make you pay for this. Pay? I said with a cold smile. Ryan, this is only the beginning. With all eyes still on me, I turned and walked out of the room. Evan followed close behind. Lin Sen's car was already waiting outside. As soon as we got in, he beamed with excitement. That was incredible. I just got word. 5 investment firms have already announced they're pulling out of StoryCorp's IPO. I exhaled deeply and leaned back into the seat. That's just step 1. Next, I'm filing a formal lawsuit against Ryan Bennett for intentional harm, and against Story Pharmaceuticals for illegal drug administration. Evan patted my shoulder. Emily, you were amazing in there. Ryan's face looked like he just swallowed a bucket of sewage. Lin Sen started the car. Where to now? To the hospital, I said. Dr. Chen is waiting for us. When we arrived, Dr. Chen was already in his office. As we entered, he stood up immediately. I watched the live stream. You crushed it. I sank into the chair exhausted. Thanks, but this is just the start. The Bennetts won't take this lying down. He poured me a glass of water. You're right. I just got word. Mr. Bennett Sr. has called an emergency family meeting. Word is, they're planning a classic cut off the tail to save the body move. Cut off the tail? Evan echoed. It means they'll sacrifice Ryan to protect StoryCorp, Dr. Chen explained. It's common in elite families. I frowned, deep in thought. If the Bennetts really disowned Ryan, would that mean my revenge was complete? No, Dr. Chen said, adjusting his glasses. For someone like Ryan, being cast out by his own family is worse than death. Just then my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered. Hello? This is Emily Summers. It was Ryan's voice, hoarse, bitter, and low. The Bennett family has decided to revoke all of my positions, strip me of my inheritance. Are you satisfied now? I let out a cold laugh. Not even close. The call ended. Silence filled the office. Dr. Chen frowned. That sounded like surrender. No. I shook my head slowly, my fingers unconsciously tracing the edge of my phone. Ryan isn't the type to give up. That call, it felt off. Evan jumped up from the sofa. Who cares? StoryCorp stock is crashing, the IPO's dead, and even Mr. Bennett gave up on him. What else can he do? At that moment, Lin Sen walked in, holding a folder. Latest update, he said, handing it to me. The Securities Commission has officially opened a case investigating StoryCorp's financial fraud. The police are involved too. I took the file and quickly skimmed through the contents. What about Claire? I asked. Hiding, Lin scoffed. But I just got word. She and Ryan had a huge fight. Apparently, the Bennett family cut off her compensation package. Dr. Chen gave a small dry laugh. So much for love. I stood and walked to the window, staring at the darkening skyline. It's not enough. Ryan drugged me. He needs to be held legally accountable. We're ready, Dr. Chen said as he opened a drawer and pulled out a thick folder. Medical records, toxicology reports, expert testimony. It's all here. Enough to press charges for intentional harm. Evan rubbed his hands together eagerly. Let's hold a press conference tomorrow. End him once and for all. I was about to reply when my phone vibrated. It was an MMS from an unknown number. The photo showed a crumbling, abandoned hospital building. The caption read, "Want to know the truth about CD29? Come alone." Tonight, 8 p.m., my heart started pounding. A trap or a breakthrough? What is it? Dr. Chen asked, instantly picking up on my shift in energy. I handed him the phone. What do you think? Is this legit? Dr. Chen studied the photo. That's the old Renhe Hospital site in Chengzhou. It's been abandoned for years. Renhe Hospital, I looked up sharply. That's where your father used to work, isn't it? Dr. Chen nodded, his eyes narrowing behind his glasses. Too much of a coincidence. I don't recommend you go. Lin Sen took the phone and examined the image. The message was sent from a masked virtual number. Can't trace it. But the photo was taken today. There's a timestamp in the lower right corner. Evan snatched the phone. No way. This is obviously Ryan's trap. Emily, don't go. I bit my lip, torn. My logic screamed not to risk it. But my gut was pulling me there. What if this really was the truth behind CD29? If you're going, Dr. Chen said suddenly, then I'm going with you. I stared at him in surprise, but the message said I should come alone. I'll stay nearby, he said, pushing up his glasses. No one knows that hospital better than I do. I'm going too, Lin Sen added. We'll wire you with a listening device. We'll hear everything in real time. Evan threw up his hands. You're all crazy. It's clearly a trap. Emily, don't fall for it. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I'm going, but you all have to promise me, unless I give the signal, no matter what happens, do not intervene. Dr. Chen looked like he wanted to argue, but in the end, he only nodded. At 7:30 p.m., we split up and headed out. I drove myself, following the GPS toward Chengzhou. In the rearview mirror, I could see Dr. Chen's car following from a safe distance. The old Renhe Hospital site was even more desolate than I'd imagined. The iron gate stood half open, creaking slightly in the wind. The main building loomed beneath the moonlight, dark and crumbling like a subdued monster. I pulled over by the side of the road, slipped on a jacket, and switched on my flashlight before stepping inside. Is anyone there? My voice echoed through the vast, empty lobby. No response. Just the sound of dripping water and wind rushing through broken windows. Following the directions from the text, I made my way to the second floor where the old pharmacy department had been. At the end of the corridor, a faint light glowed. My heart thundered as I approached slowly. I pushed open the half-closed door and saw a figure standing at the lab bench with his back to me. You came, the man said as he turned around. I was surprised to see an elderly man with a full head of white hair. You're the last chief pharmacist of Renhe Hospital, Mr. Chen? The old man nodded and pointed to a pile of documents on the table. This is the truth you were looking for. I stayed cautious, keeping my distance. Why contact me this way? He gave a bitter smile. Because the Bennetts have been watching me. 3 years ago, I refused to falsify clinical trial data for CD29. The very next day, I was in a car accident. He pulled down his collar, revealing a jagged scar on his neck. Lucky to be alive, he continued. But I've had to live in hiding ever since. My heart clenched. I stepped forward and quickly began scanning the documents. They were clinical trial records, clearly showing that CD29 had caused memory loss in early testing phases. But Story Pharmaceuticals had deliberately suppressed the results. These prove that Ryan had acted with full knowledge of the risks. My hands trembled. The old man nodded gravely. And that's not all. He pulled out a notebook. This is a copy of Ryan's father's personal journal, Henry Bennett. It outlines a detailed plan to infiltrate the Summers Group through you. I opened the notebook. The more I read, the more shocked I became. From the very beginning, Ryan's approach had been premeditated. The Bennetts had set their sights on the Summers Group's overseas channels and cash flow. Their plan was to take control through marriage and gradually absorb us. These documents were invaluable. I carefully gathered them. Mr. Chen, would you be willing to testify in court? Just as he was about to answer, footsteps echoed outside the door. We both turned. Ryan Bennett stormed in, flanked by 2 burly men. So this is where you've been hiding? He sneered. 3 years on the run, and now you finally crawl back out. Mr. Chen's face went pale. How did you follow Emily here? Ryan cast a condescending glance at me. You thought bringing a doctor and a detective made you safe? My stomach dropped. He knew about Dr. Chen and Lin Sen. With a snap of his fingers, his men moved in and quickly restrained both of us. Ryan casually pulled on a pair of gloves and walked to the desk. Now, what do we have here? He flipped through the documents, then clicked his tongue. No good, he muttered, pulling out a lighter and setting the papers ablaze. Let the past burn. The flickering fire lit up his twisted face. I struggled violently. Dr. Chen? Lin Sen? No use, Ryan chuckled. Your doctor friend is currently enjoying a little surprise I left in the parking garage, and as for the detective, he was becoming a real nuisance. I went cold all over. What did you do to them? That's not what matters. Ryan leaned in, his breath hot against my cheek. What matters, Emily, is this. You think you've won? No. The game has only just begun. He gestured toward his men. Take them. Usual routine, no loose ends. I was shoved into a black SUV, Mr. Gra. Chen was forced in behind me. As the doors slammed shut, I caught one last glimpse of the burning documents and Ryan's chilling smile. I knew then. This time, we might not make it out. The vehicle sped into the night. I leaned closer to Mr. Chen and whispered, "Where are they taking us?" He shook his head, his eyes filled with despair. 3 years ago, my accident happened on the way to the reservoir outside the city. My heart clenched, but I forced myself to stay calm. The rope around my wrists burned with each movement, but I noticed a raised screw sticking out from the floor of the van. Quietly, I shifted my body closer and began sawing the rope against it. About half an hour later, the vehicle stopped. We were dragged out and shoved onto the ground. In front of us stood an abandoned warehouse. Ryan stepped out of another car, casually spinning a scalpel between his fingers. "Did you know, Emily?" he said slowly. "I minored in anatomy in college." I bit back my fear and shot back. "That must be why you're so good at stabbing people in the back." His face darkened, and he lunged forward, grabbing my throat. "Still talking tough? Let's see how long that lasts." I was shoved into the warehouse and thrown hard to the ground. Mr. Chen was tied to a pillar in the corner, one of Ryan's men standing guard over him. Ryan pulled up a chair and sat in front of me, twirling the scalpel between his fingers with sick delight. "Let's play a game," he said with a twisted smile. "Every time you refuse to answer a question, I cut you. Let's start easy. Where are the originals of the photos and videos?" I smirked. "You really think I'd tell you?" A flash of cold steel and searing pain sliced across my arm. Blood streamed down. "Ugh." I gasped. "Ryan, you're insane." He licked the edge of the blade. "That was nothing. Next question. Besides Dr. Chen and Lin Sen, who else knows about CD29? I clenched my teeth and stayed silent. Another slash, this time across my thigh. The pain was blinding, but I bit down hard and didn't scream. Ryan looked like he was enjoying every second. "Last chance," he said, leaning in. "Hand over everything, sign the settlement. Maybe I'll let you live." I raised my head, looked straight into his eyes, and said, "Do you know what the biggest lesson I've learned since coming back from the dead is?" He frowned. "Back from the dead? That dying once changes everything," I whispered with a crooked smile. "You can't kill me, Ryan. I've already died once." He flinched, startled, stepping back. You're crazy." Suddenly, sirens wailed outside the warehouse. Ryan's face twisted. "What the hell?" His guard ran in. "Boss, the place is swarming with cops." "That's impossible," Ryan shouted. "Who called them?" The warehouse doors burst open. SWAT officers stormed in, shouting, "Don't move, drop your weapons." Ryan froze in place. I seized the moment, tore free the rope I had already weakened, grabbed a rusted iron rod from the floor, and slammed it against his knee with everything I had. "Ah!" Ryan collapsed to the ground, his scalpel clattering away. The police quickly subdued the guards and secured the warehouse. I dropped to the floor, trembling. A moment later, Dr. Chen limped inside, bloodied but alive. "Dr. Chen?" I nearly sobbed. "You're okay. Thank God." He knelt beside me, quickly checking my wounds. "Hold on, the ambulance is on its way." It turned out that when he was ambushed in the parking lot, Lin Sen had arrived just in time to save him. Hearing what was happening through the listening device, they had immediately called the police. As Ryan was dragged away in cuffs, he continued to scream, "Emily, I'm not done with you." I gave him a weak smile. "Ryan Bennett, you're finished." After getting basic treatment at the hospital, Dr. Chen and I were taken to the police station to give our statements. To my surprise and relief, Mr. Chen had managed to escape during the chaos, along with the most critical piece of evidence, the copy of Henry Bennett's diary. The next morning, the media exploded with headlines. Ryan Bennett was officially arrested on charges including attempted murder and illegal detainment. StoryCorp stock crashed, and several banks announced they were freezing the company's assets. My father came home from the board meeting to tell me, "Mr. Bennett had a stroke. He's been hospitalized. The entire Bennett family is falling apart." Just then, Evan burst into the room, beaming. Emily. The police searched Ryan Bennett's apartment and uncovered even more evidence. Meticulously detailed journals of how he drugged me, along with audio recordings of his secret conversations with Claire Davis. I took the tablet from the officer and scanned the list of published evidence. Ryan had gone so far as to record every single instance he tampered with my food or drink, noting the dosage and my physical reactions. There were also recordings of him and Claire discussing how to orchestrate an accidental death for me. That alone is enough to put him away for over 10 years, Dr. Chen said, standing behind me. I shook my head. It's not enough. I looked up at my father. Dad, I want to hold a press conference. I want everything made public, all at once. He hesitated, concern in his eyes. Emily, you're still recovering from your injuries. I'm fine, I said firmly. This time, I want to make sure Ryan and the Bennetts never recover. We scheduled the press conference for 3 days later, to be held in the main hall of Summers Group headquarters. On the day of the conference, the venue was packed wall to wall with media. Dozens of cameras pointed at the stage like black holes, waiting to devour every word. I wore a high-collared blouse to cover the bruises on my neck and stepped onto the platform slowly and calmly. Thank you all for coming. I began, my voice clear and unwavering. What I'm about to reveal today isn't just the end of a failed relationship, it's the unraveling of a carefully constructed conspiracy. For the next 2 hours, I laid out all the evidence: medical records, toxicology reports, falsified financial documents, and Ryan's criminal diary entries and recordings. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Flashbulbs went off non-stop. At the end, I took a deep breath. I want to explain how I'm even standing here today. I clicked a remote, and a video appeared on the giant screen. Hospital surveillance footage of Ryan secretly injecting an unknown substance into my IV bag. This was Ryan Bennett's second attempt to murder me, I said calmly. The first time, he succeeded. The entire room erupted in shock. I played the next video, footage from the abandoned warehouse, showing Ryan torturing me with a scalpel. Even though the video was edited to exclude the most graphic parts, it was still chilling enough to leave the audience in stunned silence. After the press conference, the videos and reports spread like wildfire. Ryan Bennett, once a golden boy of the elite, became a national disgrace, reviled across the country. StoryCorp came under formal investigation by the Securities Commission, and multiple partner companies announced the termination of their contracts. 1 week later, the prosecutor's office officially filed charges against Ryan for attempted murder, aggravated assault, unlawful detainment, and other crimes. Claire Davis was also summoned by the police for her involvement in falsifying financial records and conspiring to present false testimony. On the day of the trial, the courthouse steps were swarming with people. My family and I entered through a secured side entrance and took our seats at the plaintiff's table. Across the room, Ryan sat in the defendant's box wearing a prison uniform, looking pale and hollow, a far cry from the charming man he once pretended to be. The trial lasted 5 full days. Mr. Chen took the stand, bravely testifying despite the risks. Dr. Chen served as an expert witness, thoroughly explaining the dangers of CD29. Lin Sen presented extensive investigative findings. The most damning evidence came from encrypted files recovered from Ryan's personal computer, detailing his full plan to drug me, manipulate me, and gradually seize control of Summers Group's assets. In the end, the court ruled Ryan Bennett was guilty of attempted murder, intentional harm, unlawful detainment, and more. He was sentenced to 18 years in prison. Claire Davis received a 3-year sentence for perjury and financial fraud. StoryCorp was hit with massive fines and forcibly delisted from the stock exchange. When the verdict was read, Ryan looked like a dead man. Claire collapsed to the courtroom floor. I sat there in silence, not feeling the triumph I had imagined, just an overwhelming sense of release. As we stepped outside, sunlight forced me to squint. At the bottom of the courthouse steps, Dr. Chen was waiting. "It's over," he said. I nodded. "Yeah, it's over." "What's next?" he asked. I looked up at the brilliant blue sky. "To live," I said simply. "Really live." 3 months later, I donated a portion of my personal assets and founded the Sunrise Foundation, a nonprofit supporting victims of domestic abuse and coercive control. Dr. Chen resigned from the hospital and joined me to launch a new medical research center focused on developing safe and ethical reproductive health treatments. As for Ryan Bennett, he tried to appeal his sentence from prison, but it was rejected. There were reports that he couldn't handle the fall from grace and suffered a mental breakdown. Eventually, he was transferred to a psychiatric hospital for treatment. Claire, meanwhile, revealed even more of StoryCorp's internal corruption while serving her sentence, earning a reduction for cooperation. 1 year later, in the spring, Dr. Chen and I held a simple wedding in Bali. No scheming elites, no strategic manipulation, just sunlight, soft sand, and sincere blessings. As we exchanged rings, Dr. Chen whispered, "Thank you for choosing me after your second chance at life." I looked at him in surprise. I had always believed he was the one who had been reborn. He smiled and nodded. "I guessed it the moment you slipped up that first time," he said, lowering his voice. "And I looked up the death record from your past life. There was a discrepancy." Tears welled in my eyes as I pulled him into a tight embrace. So there really was someone in this world who believed my insane story, someone who accepted every scar and every shadow inside me. At the wedding dinner, Evan, slightly tipsy, leaned over with a mischievous grin. "Emily, guess what? Linsen just discovered that Ryan Bennett has an illegitimate son in Switzerland." I raised a brow. And, Evan said with dramatic flair, "there might still be a spark of life left in the Bennett family. Maybe one day that kid will grow up and come looking for revenge." Dr. Chen gently squeezed my hand. "Should we be worried?" I looked out at our friends and family laughing in the golden light of sunset and smiled as I shook my head. "No, I'm not worried. Because this time, I'm going to live a life so full of joy and peace that no revenge story will ever stand a chance." The waves brushed the shore in a soft rhythm as the sunset stretched our shadows long across the sand. Given a second chance at life, I finally learned what it means to truly live. Not for revenge, but for love. And to be loved.